Okay, folks, youtube.com/reality guru show. We got Real Talk Black Boy King at blackdollars.ca. And my man, yeah, go ahead, man. Go ahead and say what you was getting ready to put out there. A lot of stuff going on. Let me hear where you at right now.
Yeah, man. I mean, the opposition loves to play on our differences, our differences in ideology or whatnot. So the one thing I'm trying to wonder is, how can we connect these schools of thought? Because how I was raised under pan-africanism was, we're not throwing away the information that you bring in. You know what I'm saying? If you're bringing in a lineage, information or whatnot, we saying, you know what, let's incorporate that into what we're talking about and what we're trying to bring to the people as a whole. Or if you're saying that, hey, we need to get back to the laws of God, we need to get back to righteousness, that's cool. I'm down with that. Let's incorporate that. But I don't wanna play into the enemy's hands of butting heads all the time, and then at the end of the day, it's like, fuck y'all over there, and y'all like fuck us over there.
I feel you on that. But at the end of the day, when you talk about pan-Africanism, that is a doctrine of the enemy. And we were talking about our heritage and our race of people as being the Israelites from Jerusalem, from Israel. That is who we are. And so when you talk about saying melding it together, there is only one God of Abraham. There is only one law that he gave us to live and adhere to. So we can't mix those in with other doctrines or other races or nations of kingdoms and lineage and how they do stuff. Plus, going back to what my point was, these native Africans sold us to the European white man as part of the transatlantic slave trade. So when we're talking about pan-Africanism, again, we are the only people talking about that. And when you talk about the enemy being the people who run society, we're not individual people out here. We're at the bottom. There's a pyramid. And they remind you of this in Egypt. Egypt had pyramids. Africa, they had pyramids. They're reminding you that there's a king and a ruling party at top, and there's everyone else on the bottom. So the idea.
Let me let Della address. Hold on one second, Ye.
Real quick, just slow down real quick, because I want to just bring clarity to it all. Just real quick, real talk. What do you define pan-Africanism as, so that we're not running to a place of confusion, so that we're all on the same page? Because I want to just assume that we all define it within the same, like, what do you define pan-Africanism as? Or what do you understand?
Right. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, to me, pan-Africanism is the idea that it's basically a movement, the idea that solidarity can come amongst the indigenous and diasporic ethnic groups of the sub-Saharan African continent. Basically that there's a common fate basically linking us. And that somehow, we can come together as a nation of dark-skinned melanated people or sub-Saharan African people and have some sort of independent empowerment separate from those of Caucasian or European rulership. That's my take and interpretation on it and what I know about it, which is why, again, it's something that sounds great on paper. But the same way, and this is what I said about the enemy, the same way we were given the name of nigger first, they called us on the plantation. Then they called us Negroes. Then they called us black. Then they called us Afro-American in the 70s, a hairstyle. Then they called us African-American in the 80s, and they've been calling us that since. So you have 5 different distinct names being called to one group of people that is not their actual name or race or who they are. And so when you trace the history back, like I do, you see that these same people that you want to meld in with, their lineage and their generations after them are born after. Their ancestors sold us into them slave ships.
Let me let Della go ahead and before I know, but let me let Della go ahead and weigh in. Go ahead, brother. What's your rebuttal, man?
So this is why the destruction of the black civilization is so important, because it establishes timeline. So timeline is very important because with what Black Boy King is doing, he's trying to take Hebrew Israelite history and try to take it out of the African timeline. So to go to the point about um, Africans selling Africans into slavery,
That's what happened.
slavery started with the Arab slave trade first. That's what started off slavery, and then it went into the transatlantic slave trade. Europeans were coming into Africa, kidnapping Africans.
Yeah, and they were also
Yeah,
buying.
let me finish. Let me finish. They
Yeah.
were coming into Africa, taking Africans, kidnapping Africans by force. Then what you
Kidnapping
have?
Israelites.
Then what you have resistance. We had a lot of resistance. So when you hear Africans selling Africans into slavery, you're never going to hear Black Boy King talk about the resistance that was going on. There was a lot more resistance going on. So the Africans that sold Africans into slavery, they were the cowards, they were the sellouts, the same thing that we have going on today. They were the coons back in the day. So we can't say that percentage out. You can't say that percentage was the majority, because it was not the majority. The majority was fighting. The majority was resisting. Even if you look at the story of Queen Nzinga, Queen Nzinga was actively trying to free slaves, while her own brother was actively selling slaves to the captors. So that story alone just shows
I'm
how.
not doubting. I'm not doubting your knowledge on that.
Okay.
What I'm saying though is that the European slavers on the slave maps, G, that I'm gonna have you put up there, they knew exactly where they were going to get a certain type of people. On those slave maps, it said Negro land, distinctive of different people. On them slave maps, it says Kingdom of Judah, Kingdom of Simeon,
Yeah, God,
Kingdom
let
of
me just
Naphtali.
finish. Let me
So
just.
they knew exactly where they were going. Those are
Yeah.
Israelite tribes. They were purchasing Israelite slaves who
But,
lived.
okay, but I don't think that's the dispute. The dispute here is now because when you suggest that Africans were selling us into slavery, Della's saying that may be true, but the percentage is small. So to kind of highlight that and not focus on the resistance is a bit unfair.
Exactly.
So now, but now let me. Well, one second, hold on.
Oh, go ahead.
What's it? So Della. So let me ask you then. You believe that it was more resistance than than acquiescing and
That was the
going on.
truth.
Okay, so
That's
then,
the truth.
so if that's the case, then one of the arguments that I've heard is how could white people go into a land full of melanated people and steal anything without the assistance of people in that country? Now,
In positions of power.
That's why we gotta read Destruction of the Black Civilization. That's like the top one book to read to understand this whole thing. I know Black Boy has his biblical perspective. I'm not here to bash the biblical perspective. That's not what I'm here to do. Like what I'm against is him trying to dissect Hebrew Israelites from African history. But to go back to
It's
the
two
question,
different histories.
to go back
It's
to the
two
question,
different histories.
there's only one history. There's only
No.
one history. There's only one.
okay, let
history.
Della explain. Okay, so Della, go into it. Why it's only one history, since that's where you guys are a little separated at the moment. What do you mean it is one history? Where he says it's
There's only one type of history. So like to me, the Bible is not a history book, but I'm not here to argue about that. I just want to go back to the question about how did Europeans come and take over such great people? Destruction of Black civilization explains it perfectly. It was because of the weapons that they had. They had superior weaponry. So when they came with their weaponry, with the guns, we didn't have guns. We didn't have that type of weaponry. So then when they came, Africans actually saw the Europeans as godlike because of that weaponry. And then more and more Africans wanted to get their hands on that type of weaponry, and that caused even further division. But that's why you got to read that book from start to finish and really understand exactly how we got from the point of Egypt or the point of Kemet into where we are today now. But it's the weaponry that made them seem so superior. But even still, we had resistance against that weaponry, and sometimes we still won. But to answer that question, it was the weaponry that really changed things.
okay.
So real quick, you said you don't see the Bible as a history book after I literally just told you if you have not read the book from start to finish, you cannot have an opinion on the book. It would be the equivalent of me having an opinion about the destruction of Black civilization while having read the book. Now, I have read that book. I read that book in 9th grade. I read that book from front to back. So I have read that book and I've read the Bible. So again, I'm just saying, when we're talking about the distinction between the two types of races of Black people, we're talking about races here. We're not talking about skin color. We're talking about races of people and kingdoms, right? So when it comes to the Ashanti, the name Achan is a name given to the descendants of Judah in the Bible. Ashan in Hebrew means smoke and is a city that is in the kingdom of Judah in Israel, described in the book of Joshua, chapter 15, verses 20 and 21, and the first book of Chronicles, chapter 4, verse 24. Thus Achan or Ashanti are the descendants of the Israelite refugees from the southern kingdom of Israel, which was called the kingdom of Judah. This includes the tribes of Judah, Benjamin, Levi, Simeon, Gad, and some of the northern kingdom. Now, to touch even further on that, the suffix T, so we have Ashan T, the suffix T means children of. It means children of. And Ashan is the name of a city in the kingdom of Judah. And so basically they're saying we are the children of this city in Israel called Ashan, and we migrated through. Now again, I'm not the only one saying that though. That's what I'm saying. Like when you talk about people from the 1600s who went to Africa, white men from the 1600s who went to Africa and documented what they saw and what they observed and what they dealt with, it specifically mentions there's a Jewish white man in the 19th century. So this is the 1800s. He wrote a book called Travels in North Africa. His name is Nahum Schultz. And he said the Black Jews had an advantage over the native Africans because they carried their written history, laws, and records with them and were not absorbed into the native Africans, but the native Africans absorbed into them. And they began worshiping pagan deities. During the time of Islam and the Muslim Arab invasion of Africa, histories and artifacts of Hebrew origin told of the tribes of commercial shepherds camped from shores of the Red Sea, who crossed through the Sudan and penetrated the furthest parts of the Sahara. The Moors attributed the founding of the first empires of social and economic regimes to the Hebrews. And so this was on page 344 of this man's book written in the 1800s. So again, we're dealing with people who are
real talk. Let Della rebuttal a little bit.
So where did Hebrew come from? Like, where did the language of Hebrew originate from?
It's a Phoenician language, which is by the land of Canaan, which is northeast Africa, which is the land of Israel. And where the word Hebrew means to cross over. Abraham was the first Hebrew because he crossed over. And when you go to the Middle East and Jordan, they have a mountain range in Jordan called Wadi Musa. And I've been there, bro. Like, I've been there. I'm not making this up. Like, I stand on the land. It's called Wadi Musa. That means mountain range of Moses. Moses was a descendant of Abraham. So that's where our people come from.
Okay.
We went into Africa.
What's your follow-up, Della? Go ahead.
Where does the Phoenician come from? Like, where did it originate from?
The ancient Phoenician Canaanite languages is northeast Africa. That's what I'm explaining to you. It's not in the heart of Africa. It's northeast Africa. Israel is not a separate part. Israel is not a separate continent. It's northeast Africa, which is why the Israelites who lived in Canaan went down into Kemet, back and forth over thousands of years, because it was all part of the same plain. They didn't delineate between the two. There's only a border on there now because the fake Khazarians that lived there created a border. What I'm saying is that we're not from the main continent portion with the native Africans who lived there thousands of years before us. And every single Caucasian historian has documented this.
Okay, go ahead, Della.
Let me finish out because the language Hebrew itself derives from Egyptian hieroglyphs. You have the Egyptian
hieroglyphs. How is that possible?
Hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second.
It didn't come before it. You have the Egyptian hieroglyphs.
Fam, they was there before the Egyptians.
Real talk. Hold on. Let him finish the point, and then I'll let you rebuttal that.
So you got the Egyptian hieroglyphs, and then it went down to the Proto-Sinaitic writing system, and from the Proto-Sinaitic system, you got to the Paleo-Hebrew language. So the Hebrew language came from Egyptian hieroglyphs.
That's impossible.
It's not impossible.
Paleo-Hebrew existed before the Egyptian Empire because the prophet Enoch lived. The prophet Enoch lived 2,000 years roughly before the Egyptian Empire even existed. So the Egyptian Empire didn't exist until about 3,000 BC, when Enoch walked the earth around 4,000 or 5,000 BC, writing in Paleo-Hebrew. He wrote 360 books. He wrote 360 books that he passed down to Noah, which was preserved on the ships. That's where the ancient knowledge comes from. So all these different theories about where the Bible comes from, and
I'm not talking about the Bible. I'm talking about
the Bible's written in Hebrew. That's where it comes from. It's written in Paleo-Hebrew.
And what I'm trying to break down is from Egyptian.
Hold on, gentlemen. Just so we can make sure y'all are talking over each other. Okay, so right now we're discussing the origin of the Hebrew language. Is that what we're talking about right now? Okay, folks, you two.
It's off topic, to be honest.
But it's pointing
because it's not Egyptian. The Egyptians didn't exist until 3000 BC.
Okay, so
These are historical facts. These are historical facts, and when you say things like that,
3000 BC,
the crux behind that is to discredit the Bible. Again,
I'm not trying to discredit.
Okay, so let me ask this question, gentlemen. This is great, but listen. Okay, so Della, why did you bring up the question as far as the origin of the Hebrew language? Let's kind of.
It goes back to what exactly I've been saying. Every religion derived from Africa, and that's a little part.
And that Hebrew is not a religion, bro. It's a race. It's a race of people.
It's a language.
We had 45 kings.
Hebrew is a language. We
had 45 kings. No, Hebrews are the descendants of Abraham. They are the descendants of Abraham. Abraham was the first
language. Okay, right at this point.
The language that Abraham spoke, he lived in Mesopotamia. He crossed over the river.
So I speak English. Am I English? I speak English. Am I English?
Right.
No.
But there's an English people. That's the point. There's an English people who created English language. They're a race of people. I'm a descendant of those English people. They're called Britons, or quote unquote, they're from the United Kingdom, which was Ireland, Scotland, and England, all together with Wales as one nation of people. So that's what I'm saying. Abraham had a nation of people.
Okay.
Abraham had multiple wives who birthed a nation of people. Jacob had multiple wives who birthed 12 tribes of people. They spoke one language that was passed down to them from their ancestors. And it was a Phoenician Canaanite language that was birthed from Mesopotamia. And even the white man himself will tell you that Mesopotamia is the cradle of civilization, because they do more historical study than, because they got to continue to perpetuate their own mental programming over the dark skin.
Right.
So again, I'm not discrediting Black African conquests or their kingdoms or their empires. I'm not discrediting that. I'm saying the people who went on them slave ships, me, G, Anye, you, and I don't know your history, but if your ancestors went on them slave ships, they too.
They did
so they did. So then again, your ancestors didn't go on them slave ships, so you don't have an argument in the game. You don't have no skin in the game when it comes to this history of our people getting whips on their backs and thrown on as cargo and being sold as the first stocks on the New York Stock Exchange, to be labeled as second-class citizens, to be called every name in the book besides their actual
I get all that. My problem
is... That's what I'm saying. Those are my people.
Hold on. Okay. Hold on.
You're trying to dissect history from African history, and I'm just trying to show. Let the people do the research. Egyptian hieroglyphs, Sinai. Mount Sinai is in Egypt, and then you have the Paleo-Hebrew. So that's all I want to say. People could do their own research.
They have done the research. That's what I'm showing you. I'm showing you that
the research. Nobody's even seen this episode.
Gentlemen, hold on for a second, folks. Hold on, folks. Folks, let me just plug this. Let me plug this real quick. Listen, this is dope. YouTube.com/Reality Guru Show. Folks, make sure y'all jump in the comments, man. Right now, we are discussing some things with Real Talk and Black Dollars as far as the origin of the Hebrew language. This is real interesting stuff, man. Yay! You hear what's going on, baby? Where are we right now? How are you feeling with this conversation, man? How you feeling?
Hey man, I like the information that's being disseminated. I like that. I hate that it has to clash as such.
Yeah.
That's what the enemy love. Like, we got him again. Look, they going at each other. But we trying to figure stuff out as thinkers should do. So just being a representative of the people, our people are simple. They don't have all of this information, all this knowledge.
Right.
What about our people that's out there in the world and they just saying, you know, all this information y'all are giving, which is great. How does this equate to today and my reality, our reality, and helping to find solutions within just this whole paradigm that we face, this hell that we're catching?
And that's what I'm saying, is that when we come to the understanding that the descendants of the people who went on those ships are a distinct black people from other type of people, and that our lineage and our history and our kingdom and who we are as a people, the nation of Israel was an actual nation of people with a history over 2,000 years old, with 45 kings, a navy, an army, a military force. We had conquest, we had battles, we had riches, we had an economy. And we, at the same time, also worshiped a God, and that God is the God of Abraham. Other nations of people worship their gods, but we worship the God of Abraham. And the enemy that controls the world right now knows and understands this. When they went and sought out the black people to put them on ships, they went for a specific type of black person. They enslaved the specific type of black person to develop an empire for a specific reason. Because the God that the Caucasians worship, whether they want to believe it or not, in the God of Christianity or in the God of atheism or the God of evolution or the God of scientism, is known in the Bible as Satan. In Hebrew, we call him Hashatan or Satan or Lucifer. But what it is the ideology of doing, you worship yourself. You are a God. That's why the white man came out with evolution, to say that mankind came out of just random stuff, and that if you believe in yourself, you can achieve whatever. Meanwhile, they are in the back studying the scriptures backwards and forwards to know how to use them against the children of Israel through rap music, through liquor stores and guns on every corner of our community, Christianity church houses on every corner of our community, and self-destruction being promoted through the media. And they know that the further away they can keep us away from our main power, which is the God of Abraham and the laws that he gave us to live by, the longer they will be in power. And they've been in power now since the 1400s. So from the fall of the Roman Empire in around 300-400 AD until about 1400 AD, the Israelites were back in power in Europe and in Africa. And during that time frame, flourishing, and we were living well, and we were living at peace with our neighbors. Now, when we started idolatizing and worshiping gods of wood and stone again, and not following the commandments of don't murder, don't steal, don't cheat on your wife, don't covet items, when we stopped doing those things, our kingdom started to become attacked by our enemies again. We started having faltering economies, and we fell. And the enemy understands this. This is why this knowledge of the Israelite truth is so important to the black community, because when we start behaving in this manner and we start reading these books and we start traveling and seeing these artifacts and we talk to those people in those countries and have them tell you to your face, yo, you the Israelites, fam, wake up. These niggas is running society into the ground. We got pollution, we got poverty, we got warfare all over the place. If you niggas don't wake up, everybody's gonna die. That's what they say to us when we travel over there.
Let me ask you a question.
So that's why it's important.
Let me ask this, because I hear that. But if here's the thing, pan-africanism is about uniting Africa, one Africa, and you're suggesting that we're not Africans, we're Hebrew Israelites. Do you disagree with that, Della? First, that's the first point. Do you disagree with the fact that Hebrew Israelites are not Africans? That's the part that I really need to get into. How do you feel about that part?
No, Hebrew Israelites are definitely Africans. They lived in Africa. He brought up the DNA testing, and if you look at what they say about African DNA, it started in Africa and it spread out. There's a map that shows that. So he's talking about the E1B1A being different from the E1B1, which is the father or the mother. It just doesn't make any sense. So if he wants to bring DNA testing into it, when he was brought up the DNA testing, he was talking about how he used the DNA testing to learn his history. So people in America, ADO West, they could use DNA testing to see what part of Africa that they come out of. So don't use one part of DNA testing and then discredit everything else. You got to take the whole
I'm
thing.
not.
Yes,
I did.
you
Well,
are.
you
Yes, you
see,
are.
No,
so
I'm saying I found out who I was. I'm saying I found out who I was, and I did the research.
Yeah,
And
but
well,
the research shows that the Ashanti.
hold on,
The
fellas.
research shows
I got you. But
Hold-
shows that the Ashanti are from Israel.
I
So,
got
The
you. I
Ashanti
got you.
are from Israel.
okay,
I
fellas.
got
So,
I
Black
did
Boy,
the
hold on,
I get
gentlemen.
what you're saying.
Hold
Yeah.
on, gentlemen. YouTube.com/reality guru show, fellas. Listen, Bad Boy King. Okay, so then what would you say to, I'm glad that Della brought up ADOS. So what would you say to individuals who haven't gone as far as you've gone as far as the history is concerned? They've only gone as far as American descendant of slavery is concerned. What do you say about them and their focus on reparations? This doesn't make any sense.
It ain't gonna happen. This white man
Open
that
that up.
runs this society is not going to give you any money. If they were going to, they would have did it already. They gave the Japanese billions of dollars for putting them in concentration camps for a couple years. Why? Because they have political allegiances to the Japanese. Why? Because the Japanese people have a kingdom, a nation, a heritage, and a lineage, and they know who they are. The so-called fake Jew, he gets reparations from the Holocaust. Why? Because the fake Jew runs the banking system and the media system. So the white man cannot use his military might and power without going and borrowing money from the fake Jew. So of course he's going to sign off on documents allowing the fake Jew to give himself money for an event that most likely he set up himself to claim the land of Israel and say that they're the Jews. But again, the black man in America who went on those slave ships, who gets called nigga every day and gets discriminated on the workplace, is suffering from a condition placed on them by these curses of Deuteronomy, in which, again, no man will redeem.
Okay,
So since the enemy understands this, they'll never, no matter how much you beg and plead, what they look at it is from their perspective is these are my slaves asking me for more than I've already given them and that they'll already get.
Okay.
From our perspective, it's like we need the money because we were slaves and all that. But if we got no system of behavior, no banking system, no community structure, no self-policing structure, no code of conduct, and no family values, what will a check from the government do for us that welfare hasn't already done?
Here's the thing. So let me say that. Let me see, because we did see. I know you guys know that cat Jay Morrison with real estate mogul. He has that Tulsa real estate investment fund and all that other stuff. I saw something on Instagram that he mentioned that blacks in this country, asking for reparations was foolish. Something sort of like what you were saying. Now, I had a problem with that, because, whether you guys feel like the way that is being approached isn't a good, strategy. No one has given in anything an alternative. I see ADOS as the front runner. Like, they're the ones at the front of this situation. I don't see any other program, system, movement. And the reason I bring that up is because, like I said, most people haven't gone as far as this history is concerned, like you do, Black Boy King. So if they're stuck here, at reparations, how do you divert their attention? Because you're suggesting that this is a distraction, right? Focus on reparations. So how do you divert their attention?
Well, again, they have to start taking care of their own personal situation instead of worrying about what the government is going to do for us. And that's the secondary benefit you get from understanding that you're an Israelite. Because when you start taking a rulership mentality and you start living according to these commandments, your personal financial situation and your relationship situation starts to better as a byproduct and a result of that. I'm not hurting for no money. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've been blessed, like, tremendously. I came from the streets. I came from the gutter. I rode the bus. I had niggas laughing at me because I ain't have the clothes and all that stuff that they had, right? Mm-hmm. But now, as an adult, you know what I mean? I conduct myself in a way, shape, form, or fashion, and I'm extremely blessed. I'm never worrying about what the white man can do for me because I can do for myself. I don't ask the white man for any money because I do for myself. And that's what us as a people have to start understanding, is that right now we are still the slave child looking at master, which is the United States government, as our provider. And we get a reparation check every month. For example, Andrew Yang is a presidential candidate he's pumping this freedom dividend, the universal basic income, where every American gets $1,000 to $2,000 a month just for being a citizen of America. that is not going to improve the conditions of Americans, because Americans do not understand the financial system. So when you talk about the amount of money that has already passed through the Black or Israelite community here in America, we have over $1 trillion of spending power as it is. But what we're doing is we're spending that money on Jordans, Gucci, hair extensions, and nonsense. We're not investing in real estate. We're not investing in precious metals. We're not investing in oil and resources, and we're not circulating our money through our community 7 and 8 times as the scriptures tell us to. When we had our own kingdom, we were commanded by God to, when the money came into our community, we passed it to one brother, who passed it to another brother, who passed it to another brother 8 times before it went to the other nations of people. We don't do that. We get our check on Friday and we're giving it to the white man on Saturday, and it's gone. So if we get a reparations check, the exact same thing is going to happen, and we will remain at that economic level as well as that level.
Here's where I disagree with that, because we do. I mean, you don't need all Black people to understand what to do with the money in the beginning. You just need a few scholars, a few individuals who really understand reparations. To be at the forefront to secure that bag, so to speak, right? And then they can have the conversations as far as what happens with it. Is it going to be like Antonio Moore stated? After you broke it down, it came to about like $1.5 million per American descendant of slave. So is it going to be like that, or is it going to be a situation where they figure out how to, disseminate that money and create programs or something like that? I don't know what it is, but I just don't like the idea of people saying that it's foolish. Especially,
you ask yourself, where does the money come from? Who's cutting the check, right? So if they say, yes, Black people, we're going to give you this $17 trillion of reparations that I think Ta-Nehisi Coates had quoted as the figure of how much money that they would owe us in reparations. We're talking $17 trillion. The United States fiscal budget year over year is $1.3 trillion. That's how much money it takes to operate the United States as a whole globally on a year-to-year basis. So you're talking about 17 years worth of United States fiscal budget that is going to be given to one group of people in the United States. Not only is that going to create a huge amount of political strife within the Caucasian community, the Japanese community, the Chinese community, and the rich Hispanic community that have heavy investments in the United States. Also, the Middle Eastern Saudi Arabians who are oil rich and own nearly $250 billion worth of U.S. assets. That's going to take a huge hit. So because you're asking those countries now to, again, make an additional investment to pay this cost. And then at the end of the day, the final signer of that check for that bill is going to be the Rothschild family, who heads the Federal Reserve Bank. Right. The Federal Reserve Bank is the one printing the money. So they say, okay, y'all want to have reparations? We're going to print the money. So 17 trillion printed, guess what? Prices are going to go up. It's going to cause inflation. And so you'll end up paying $6, $7, $8, $9, $10 a gallon for gasoline to make up the L that the bank is going to have to take by cutting that big of a check. And that's why I said, when you understand the economic system and how it works globally, you'll know that they're just not going to do that. They may give you $1,000 a month, and if they do, great. That's a victory for Black people, and I'll take my $1,000 happily. You know what I'm saying? I'll invest it. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, it's not going to make big changes, because we as a people still think on an adolescent level, while the rest of the world is operating at an adult level.
So what's wrong? Grow past that. What's wrong with now? This if it is 17 trillion, because actually I heard it was a little more than that. Especially if you're going to get to 1.5 million per for about 40 million of us here. Yep. So it has to be 40 something million. 40 something. Whatever it is, I'm not gonna get too deep into
trillions
that.
Trillions of dollars. We're talking about the Iraq War several times over.
Right. So Della, you hear what he's talking about with regard to this reparations. Now, I know you are a resident of Toronto, and you've already expressed how your ancestry doesn't run through slavery, but we've talked before briefly about reparations. Do you think it's a foolish thing to focus on now, like Black Boy King suggested?
Well, I mean, he brought up some very pertinent facts about like the economics behind everything. I mean, like I said in the interview that we did, they're gonna drag out this process as much as possible, and that the hearing about HR 40 with Ta-Nehisi and the SoundCloud rapper and Danny Glover just
Mm-hmm.
proved exactly what I was saying. Because why they don't have any experts, especially economic experts, to be talking about that situation. So, do I think it's foolish? I mean, the honestly, I don't think that they're gonna give out reparations at all. I feel like the reason why they're entertaining the idea is because they've been ignoring it for so long, but now they can't ignore it. So now they're gonna switch it up and be like, okay, how can we continue to entertain the idea and drag it out as long as possible? So, like I said, if the ADOS has the energy to take this uh 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years to try and get the goal that they want, then that's really up to them because they're the ones who went through that pain. They're the ones who went through all that turmoil. So like I can't say that ADOS can't go after that because that's something that um that's something that I feel very very much about. So like I can't really come against that because I know exactly where they're coming from, even though I have not none to do with ADOS
Mm-hmm.
or my lineage coming from slavery.
Mm-hmm.
But just knowing how the system works, knowing how the machine works, I just don't see it happening. But more power to you guys if you could try and achieve something. But I don't see it happening. And that hearing with that wasn't even a hearing. That was just a circus, to be
Yeah, it was a
honest.
joke. It was a joke. But I mean, even though it
But
was a joke,
it was
it's
purposely meant to be a joke
his
because it's
his.
again it's election season.
This is the
Exactly.
thing.
Like you said, Della. I'm actually agreeing with you, Della. Like we're on the same page with that.
Yeah, we are. We
It's
are.
is to get those votes because they need talking points. That's why you got Cory Booker talking about it. He trying to get the
Exactly.
White House. All these people talking about reparations because again, every empire. So just to kind of going back to the Israelite thing, when you go to the history of the Israelites, every country from Babylon, Greece, Rome, the Persian Empire, if they had a population of Israelites, they were elevated as an empire. And so America has a strong population of Israelites and they're elevated in the empire. So they're going to do whatever it takes to get your vote. So if that means dangling this carrot in front of you about reparations to get you to go out and hit on the ballot box, I'm voting for Cory Booker, I'm voting for Joe Biden or whoever because he's going to give me reparations, they're going to say that. And that's what you're witnessing right now with this topic being brought up. And then everybody will say, well, we tried and it didn't happen. And
Okay,
I guess we just back to the beginning.
let me put this final piece to the reparations. Because we're running out of time a little bit. So then, okay, so then fine. Then if that's the case, you guys don't think that reparations is coming? Because first off, I was, when you mentioned 17 trillion, it didn't have to be one lump sum. It could have been, broken up over the course of 20 years. I think that was one of the things that Yvette Carnell and Antonio Moore was mentioning. But it's a foolish idea for us to focus on reparations, even though it's a real debt. This is a real justice claim. You guys still think, well, let's say Black Boy King, you still think that it is a foolish thing. It's a distraction, and we need to be focusing on some other stuff. You still feel that way?
Yeah, because the African descendants of slaves or the ADOS movement, in addition to anybody else who doesn't have knowledge on the topic, they shouldn't be focusing on getting a check. You should be asking yourself, why did we go into slavery? The African descendants of slaves should not be trying to seek justice from their enemy. The enemy is not going to give you justice. That's why our court system is set up to sway against Black people. That's why they do things like mass incarceration of Black people. And the economic system, they don't want you on the job. They're only going to take, if it's a department of 10 people, I'm going to have maybe one Black person up in here.
So you don't
They
think?
don't want you here.
Oh, so
I think it's a lost cause because those descendants of slaves like myself need to be asking themselves, why is this happening to our people? What happened? We can dunk a ball like LeBron. We can rap and sing. We got Whitney Houston. We got Michael Jackson. We got Bob Johnson running BET. We got a Black man that was a head of American Express running one of the most prestigious brands You know what I'm saying? And then like we're the best at everything. When we decide to do good, we're the best. When we decide to do bad, we're the best. We got Frank Lucas, the biggest drug dealer, or the biggest killers, the biggest rappers. Like when we do bad, we do bad. When we do good, we do good, right? So we got to start asking, how can a great nation of people like this be at the bottom continually, and have to ask this white man government for a rub on the head and say, I'm sorry? Because that's the way the Israelite community looks at it. We look at it as, if they gave us the reparations check, it's a rub on the head and saying, I'm sorry. But the actual white man that you see on the streets, when he looks at you, he does not see that. He sees you accepting a handout that should have went in his pocket. And so when I explain to people all the time, I was like, you have to study history to know that the white man took extreme lengths to conquer the world. He killed billions of people, the Native American, the Asian man, the black man, any other brown skinned people, like you mentioned, Samoans and Tongans and all them, went to them different islands and killed all them people. They went through great lengths to have dominion on this planet. They're not going to want to give any sort of, bits and pieces of that. So, long story short, to answer your question, we need to be focusing on why we're in this situation and who we are, and stop focusing the what. That's what we're doing right now, is focusing.
Gotcha. Yeah, before I go to final thoughts, go ahead and weigh in or not.
Yeah, just piggybacking off of what Jay Morrison said, I think people got offended that he said foolish, and they took it the wrong way. We got to put it in context. What I heard from what he said within the video in entirety, he was just saying that, his train of thought.
About he mentioned stuff about us doing things ourselves, being unified as far as ourselves and stuff.
Oh yeah, I got my train of thought back. He wasn't saying that it was foolish that it was old. He wasn't saying that it shouldn't be fought for. That's not what I was hearing. I was just hearing that it's foolish of who we're asking. It's ultimately saying that we don't understand the history of these people and our relationship with these people to be begging these people for such. It's foolish. Hold on. It's foolish within the method that we're trying to get it right now. It's foolish to just say, yes, we are owed this, and not look at how it does, how the brother pointed out, affect the rest of the world, and how the rest of the world, I would make some shit really crumble.
Here's the thing. It's not a request. This is where the confusion.
No. Right now it is a request.
No. It ain't. This is did Ados.
Them in the language that they understand. We're on our knees begging.
We are not begging. Listen, you see, you can get the impression from the Dog and Pony Show HR 40 that we are begging. We ain't begging for nothing. We are demanding what's fucking owed. Don't get confused. We are
from a group that's not a righteous people.
That's fine. Let me ask you a question, Ye. When's the last time somebody owed you anything?
It's been a while.
Well, the last time somebody owed you something, and you didn't get it back, I should say.
Yeah.
Does it make a difference if they're unsavory, if these motherfuckers are immoral? That shit is still owed to you, brother. I don't give a fuck. It doesn't matter. And when Jay Morrison says things like foolish, it's dangerous, because we're already teetering here, trying to figure out what movement or what situation we're going to be moving towards. You got something going on with some energy in this country, and there's people who feel like we shouldn't focus on that because it's a distraction. And my other question would be, if you live in this fucking country, identify with what's going on here, and to some degree, what goes on in this business called the United States of America. This is the way that you get your food, you make your income. Why would you even vote if Democrats are not even going to entertain the idea of reparations? I'm not even thinking about Republicans. I'm just talking about Democrats. Why would anybody even vote for anybody in this fucking country if that's not something they would even entertain?
As they said,
you definitely shouldn't be.
This is a circus. It's a charade. Voting is not going to get us out of this hell that we catch. It's not. Begging for reparations. Now, again, it is old to us. We should find methods to go get that, but the way we're going about it,
we getting better.
And just as you said, it does matter the person that owes you money, because a man of honor is going to say, you know what, I'm going to honor this debt that I owe to you. But a man that doesn't stand on principles, morals, or ethics is going to say, fuck that.
Shouldn't stop you from calling this motherfucker. Shouldn't stop you from texting him, sending him messages. Get what's owed.
He has no principle. Stands on it. Doesn't matter that you call him. You can only the language that he understands and that he responds to get that that's owed to you. And it's not going to be calling him on the phone. It's not going to be
exactly. And that's why I said what we got coming to us is greater than any reparation that can be paid to us. And that's the part we have to accept, is we have to be patient. We had our time to rule. We messed it up. We suffer in this time frame now, but the Bible says we're going to come back. And what the riches we have, the Christians have turned this Bible into a fantasy fairy tale, babies with wings in a cloud and all that. The kingdom of heaven is here on earth. And all it means is that there will be a global society living according to the laws, statutes, and commandments that God laid out for us, and that we will be accelerated back to our position of leadership, to where things like money will not matter. The earth will be plentiful with food. We won't have to worry about eating. We'll have plenty of clothes. We won't have to worry about clothing and safety and security and things like that. It's a real paradigm that's going to happen on our earth plane we're existing on. And so if you look at history, every empire that has come has also fallen. When Rome was the top empire, there was brothers having conversation in Rome, just like me and you having right now. Yo, what's Caesar finna do? Yo, whatever the political topics of Caesar at the time was, those Romans were sitting there going, this is gonna last forever. We're gonna have the Roman Empire forever. And guess what? It fell. So America is gonna fall too. So if you asking for money right now from this government, what is going to preclude you from being wealthy when they decide to crash the dollar 1929, or crash the housing market like they did in 2008, and everybody's broke again? Because that's what they're gonna do. And that's what my point is, that they'll give you the money and say, hey, here's the money, and you balling 6 months later, stock market crash. That money ain't worth nothing.
And that's the question.
Then what?
That's the question I've always had in my mind, going back to the person that owes you the money. I've always said to myself, hold up, if they gave us that money, I would be scared as fuck, because I would say, hold up. They didn't just become righteous overnight. Hold up, they got a plan in the script behind these screens. How they really about to fuck us up. It must really be the end of America that they about to give us.
Hold on. Listen, it's still worth what it's worth, right? I mean, even if, the reparation situation.
We're not in power. We're not structured. We're not in control.
That could come later, yay. That could come later. Here's the thing.
You don't build a house on mud. You must say.
That's what Jesus said.
Here's what I'm saying.
Exactly. You just quoted the Messiah right there.
We are running so low on time. I'll just say this piece before we go into final thoughts. The one thing, when you say be patient, it's I mean, how patient should we be? Generations upon generations of, whether you're talking about ADOS, whether you're talking about Africans, whether you're talking about Hebrew Israelites with the tribe of Judah that's lost their life in this country, and we're talking about over the course of, which people say 400, but you mentioned that we've been here for almost 5. So how much patient do we really need to be, with regard to this, brother? How much more patient, man?
We have to be patient. That's the test. That is the test. That's why, no matter what philosophy you adhere to, is always the number one virtue. I have to have patience with you, my brother, for your whatever you know and what you don't know about what I'm talking about. I have to be patient that you'll go and research and get it. That's why, again, we talked about those brothers yelling on the street corners. They're breaking the commandment. They have no patience. They're yelling at people, forcing their doctrines. All I can do is present the facts, and then I got to be patient with you as my brother and say, okay, I pray that he reads it and studies up and finds out who he is. Just like Della, I gotta have patience with him, that if he ever does see, I'm just saying, if he ever sees, I gotta be patient with that. If he don't ever see, if it never clicks with him, I gotta be patient with that too. And so that's when we're talking about, how the Christians have blasphemed the principles that our God gave us and created this fake religion called Christianity, about turning the other cheek. Turning the other cheek isn't about getting your ass beat. Turning the other cheek is about being patient with your brethren. because we are a lost people who had our heritage stripped from us. So we got to endure. And that's why the Messiah said, those who endure to the end will be saved. Chris, I'm talking about, I've been saved. Saved from what? The downfall of America ain't happened yet. When the downfall of America happens, that's when you're going to be saved. When you look around you and you say, man, I made it out.
All right, folks, youtube.com/reality guru show. I'm here with Real Talk, Black Boy King and blackdollars.ca, man. We're going to get ready to jump into final thoughts on this situation here. I don't know, I'll probably title this shit Message to the Black Diaspora, man. We got a lot of stuff that we got out that we need to for people to start listening to. So let me go ahead and start with you, Ye, man. How you want to finish this situation off, man? A lot of information, brother.
A lot. Brother Black Dollars came with it. Della came with it. A lot of good information, man. The main thing I'm hearing out of this conversation, specifically Real Talk, which, you know, I'm with 100%, is us understanding who the hell we are. Who the hell we are, our lineage. That's very important. How the hell you know where you're going if you don't know where you came from and who you are? How you know where to go once you get reparations if you don't know who you are or what to do with it? And another thing that I'm hearing from is from what he's giving us is us just getting back to righteousness, man.
Yeah.
You know, once we get back to righteousness as a people and understand what righteousness is, what it looks like, what the laws are, and follow that, everything else will fall into play. You know, all the people I know who are good, honorable people that, you know, fall on principles, morals, values, ethics, their lives are good. You know what I'm saying? I got to be honest. Most of the people that I see that got crazy lives and it's all over the place is the people that they don't stand on nothing. Again, foundation. So, I mean, that's a testament to that. And that's just having patience that things will fall in place.
Yeah.
So,
I hear that. Della, go ahead and let me know how you want to finish this up, champ.
Yeah. So I definitely agree with Black Boy King. It's gonna take a lot of patience, like for whatever we're doing, whatever path we're on. But me specifically speaking from a pan-Africanist perspective, we just gotta organize. We just gotta make sure that we're keeping this conversation consistent, we're keeping the study consistent, and we're doing it as a group because pan-Africanism is about it's a people's movement. So it's about the people coming together, making themselves accountable, making themselves the power is like it's power in numbers. We have strength in numbers. So when we get together as a group, then we can do whatever we want. And pan-Africanism, I have to say again, it's above any religion because what we're trying to achieve is liberation. So I know Black Boy King, he thinks the Bible is gonna be he thinks the Bible is gonna give us liberation. I don't agree with that. I think us getting together and putting aside our nationality, putting aside our religion, and trying to achieve full total liberation is really what's gonna free us. So if you're not part of an organization, I suggest you should get part of an organization. Make sure they're fighting for the liberation of our people, because I don't suggest to join any organization. Great ancestor Kwame Ture, who was part of the All African People's Revolutionary Party, said we're better off with 100 organizations than no organization at all. But we definitely need to find an organization that's fighting for the liberation of our people and make sure we're keeping ourselves accountable and make sure we're keeping it consistent, because this conversation we're having, we can't finish everything in one conversation. It's gonna take consistency over and over and over again, and it's definitely gonna take some patience. So yeah, that's pretty much what I want to say.
Hey, dope. Real talk, Black Boy King. Yeah, your guys was cooking today, man. So finish it up for us, brother. How you feeling?
Yeah, no doubt. Couple of things, you know what I'm saying? My new album, True, out on Spotify, Apple Music, all platforms out right now.
Check them out.
Keep the new single called Proof, featuring my man Constantine, my other man Kurt Flow, airing on the radio in Virginia, WVAI 101.3 Jams. So peep that every Saturday night on the Hip Hop Vinyl Show.
Indeed.
Also, that if you are a descendant of slaves, if you don't know you're a descendant of slaves, go look into your history. Descendants of slaves are the Israelites, and we're specifically the fourth tribe of Judah, the fourth son of Jacob. So we are these people, and the history books will tell you that. The world will tell you that. The Bible will tell you that. And you have to elevate your mind frame. Real quick, just want to shout out to these 13 tribes in Africa right now that are Israelite tribe descendants: the Ethiopian Falasha, the Abu Yadaya of Uganda, the Tutsi of Rwanda, the Wusape of Zimbabwe, the Limba of South Africa, the Sefwi Wayawaso of Ghana, people of Ghana, the Benai Ephraim Yoruba people of Nigeria, the Lamlam of Ghana, the Katsina of Nigeria, the Zephran Ibrahim of Malagasy Republic, and the Igbo tribe of Nigeria. Shout out to your boy in Africa, you know what I'm saying? And then as far as books, I didn't get a chance to dive into some of the other books, but there's mad books on the topic of the Western diaspora, black men who went on the slave ships being the actual children of Israel, traveling through Africa, through Europe, and what happened to us. And I'll just read a couple of them off real quick, write them down, go back, push pause, whatever, go back and replay so you can write them down.
I tell you what, Amazon. Just go ahead, list them, and I'll make sure I have them put them in the description.
So we got Hebrewisms of West Africa by Joseph Williams. We have Babylon to Timbuktu by Dr. Rudolph Windsor. We have the 1611 King James Bible. That's the original Bible by my ancestor, King James I, printed in 1611. Antiquities of the Jews by the ancient historian Josephus, who was also a Black Israelite living in Rome at the time. Hebrews to Negroes by Dr. Ronald Dalton. The Truth About the Black Hebrew Israelites by Ella Hughley. The Lost Tribes and Promised Lands by Ronald Sanders. The Zondervan Bible Dictionary. The Valley of the Dry Bones by Dr. Rudolph Windsor. The Black Hebrews and Arabs by Anu Mbantu and Gert Muller. The Black Hebrews Volume 2 by Gert Muller. The 13th Tribe by Arthur Koestler. The Invention of the Jewish People by Shlomo Sands. Memphis Under the Ptolemies by Dorothy Thompson. Travels into North Africa by Nahum Slouch. And Annals of Roman History by Roman Emperor Tacitus, as well as the Igbos, Exiles from Israel by O. Alezi. And lastly, The Negro Question, Volume 2, Slave Ships That Came from Judah by Lee Cummings. And I'll finish it up that John Ogilvie was a writer from the 1670s, and he wrote a book also called Africa, being an accurate description of the regions, including Egypt. And he specifically quotes the Israelite migration on page 34 of that book. So holla at your boy, Real Talk 480 on Instagram and Twitter. You know what I'm saying? Peep the album on Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, all the platforms, and I'll holla at y'all.
Well, folks, listen, Dynamite Show, great content, great guests. Thanks to Black Boy King, Real Talk 480. Make sure you check him out on IG. Also, my man Della, check him out on IG, blackdollars.ca. You know, I always got my man Ye, Ye's Way. Check him out on IG, and me, G Cleve. It's Reality Guru. Take care.
And in the end, it's done. And I really hope you find the one. Wild ride, but it was so much fun. Deep hit, so fun. And in the end, it's said and done. And I really hope you find the one. Wild ride, but it was so much fun.